What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Skeffscomicknowledge. I am Skeff, and thank you so much for tuning in to another one of my videos. I cannot thank you enough. I really appreciate it. So, in today's, whenever you happen to be watching this video, one, I appreciate it. Two, just like the title says, what is happening to the current comic market, and why are the prices bananas? It's insane on what we have seen currently prices going for. And in tonight's episode is I'm going to give my 2 cents, throw my hat into the ring. I am a new collector into this market. I've only been really at this seriously for maybe about 2.5 years. Like seriously, like really kind of doing my homework on there. So I am fairly new, and I really kind of know most about like the modern market, but it has been fascinating as a new collector, especially if you're also a new collector coming into this market, and what not to be intimidated by some of these prices. So I'm going to talk about just a couple books, mostly books that I own because like I understand what they're going for. I'm going to talk about just a couple books like what Amazing Spider-Man 300 is doing, what obviously Ultimate Fallout 4 is doing. I'll also be talking about, older X-Men books that are going crazy as well. Also along with the current Star Wars expanded universe and what it's currently doing on the Disney Plus, with potential for even greater characters to show up on there. And of course, we can't forget about Some of These Little Children, which I have plenty of, which you have seen. And then one of my favorite books in the collection right now, just a great Silver Age Spider-Man key. I really just want to make this video to ramble on a little bit because I wanted to give my 2 cents in about what the comic market is doing and maybe why it's doing it, and what it could lead potentially to the future of comics as a collectible market by themselves. So like I said, I've really only been at this for probably a good strong 2.5 years of kind of collecting, grading, buying, selling, things of that nature. And it has been a wild ride. I've loved every minute of it, and getting to understand the market the way it works nowadays is completely different to what it was just a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, when I kind of like took my game up to the next level, that you would say. I think it's been just the more awareness of what comics are and what they can stand the test of time, and the value that comes with that. So if you haven't been noticing recently, or if you haven't been aware of it over the past 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, I do believe the sports card market also kind of took this massive leap where there were cards that were selling for $1,000. In about 1 year's time span, those same cards, like of key players, were asking prices of around $10,000. Because at the time, people believed those cards were, I believe, undervalued. And then there was other things that kind of drove that market up where the prices are now, and then more people became more aware of sports cards, and then more people started investing, and then PSA shut down, and then everyone got sad. Just recently, over the last 6-7 months, a lot of comics in the comic industry have exploded. It has been shocking when you see comics, for example, like the copy of Amazing Spider-Man 300 from just a year and a half ago. A 9.8 asking price was around that $15,000 to $2,000 range, with the 9.6 asking price between that $400 to $550 range. Now asking prices for that book have tripled for both the 9.6 9.8. You have other key Spider-Man older books like the ASM 252, where I picked up this book at a 9.6 for around $150 a little over a year ago, with now 9.6s asking for $700-800 and 9.8s asking over $2,000, when 9.8s were asking just over $500. Like, it is harder for people to, I believe, get behind some of these prices, especially the people that maybe have been in the industry a lot longer, who believe that these prices are inflated due to no reason other than maybe more people getting into it. But it's one of those things where I believe that, especially as a new collector to this market, I never knew what these prices used to go for. I know what I purchased them for now, and what they're currently worth, and what I think they might be worth in the future. Called price memory. So when a book hits a certain price point, and it's a book that you believe in, and it starts to dip back down, there's always that threshold of like what you would buy it for. So a great example is the copy of Ultimate Fallout 4 9.6. It was a book that was one of the very first books I really speculated and invested on about 2 years ago. It was a book I thought at the time was extremely undervalued. At the time, I wasn't as in-depth as I was now, so I wasn't able to purchase as many copies as I wanted to, but I was able to pick up 6 nice copies at the time because I believe that the movie had already come out, Miles was a hit, the movie won an Oscar, and 9/6 raw copies are still $100, while 9/8 were only $500. At the time, I would have just bought 9/8, but I couldn't afford that, so I did what I could, and I bought raw copies. And that's also one thing I think you should do as a collector, that, yes, a lot of prices out there nowadays are tremendously higher than they used to be. Never in my wildest dreams, when I picked up the book off the rack over a year and a half ago now, that the Boom Studio Something Killing Children book ever be worth a couple $100. Never. I love the series. Like, it started out great. I'm just like, oh, this is a great series that has potential. But in my wildest dreams, I never thought it would surpass Saga #1 at a 9/8. Never. But it has. It's one of the things where I believe that people find something that they truly love, and they kind of just go head first into it. And it's taken that market by storm, especially if you have newer collectors, kind of versus the old collectors of what they think things are worth to what we believe they can get to. And it's that aspect of that where I believe people, even from outside the comic market, are maybe coming in to purchase key books. Like, I had a friend the other day who doesn't really know much about comics ask me about Miles Morales. Even he had questions about like comics and what they go for, and I've had a lot of questions recently since starting this YouTube show from friends and family asking me about comics and things of that nature, because it's becoming a little bit more, I don't want to say mainstream because it's always been mainstream, but more known to people who are kind of unaware of it. And one thing I think that has played a major factor in all this is that the ability for these shows and these movies to really drive a lot of these prices and or the speculation behind these shows and these movies coming out with more media presence of these certain characters. Like, for example, the Star Wars Kanan #1, where we had the first appearance of like the Rebels crew. Like, people believe that with the tie-in from the Ahsoka series and the Mandalorian, there's no reason that probably one of these characters couldn't show up in a future show. So people are banking on that. So that's why this book, I think, is like a $500-600 book right now. It's crazy compared to what it was just a year ago. People are kind of heavily investing into that aspect of it. So when people talk about like a comic market bubble, or the comic market's going to crash, or that these prices are overinflated for what the books are because of lack of information coming out on the books, I mean, you're not wrong. The market's nuts. But I don't believe that's something that you should be intimidated by the prices. There are opportunities out there still, and you just have to do more work now than you used to. It's kind of crazy how you look back, how things just change, and it's hard to believe when a book has been worth a price point for so long. Like Amazing Spider-Man 252 came out in 1984. From when I started collecting, it was always $80 to $100 book raw, and when I was talking to collectors and vendors, it was kind of around that price point for a long time. It wasn't until really just recently where it is absolutely imploded in price. And I picked them up because I thought they were a great key at the time, was a little undervalued. So I'm like, let's pick up a couple of these. I think it's a great book. I love the cover, and I like Spider-Man. But it was just one of those things where it was such a set price point for so long that when these prices started getting higher, people were trying to validate a reason behind these prices. I think that's the thing you need to take away, is that stop trying to understand. It's great. It's a very great benefit to try to understand why these prices are what they are, so you know what to look for when you go to shows or shop and things of that nature. But just stop. Like, just assume nothing makes sense anymore and just be along for the ride. Like, I'm all aboard the train. Toot toot. Just take me to where we're going, because it is crazy. And then here's another example. Like my X-Men, the first Blob. This book was one of the first like big boy books that I picked up about 2 years ago. This one I bought raw, I think for around like $200, and I thought that was really high at the time compared to what the current comps are going for it. Now, the asking price for this book is like $950, just because X-Men in the MCU potential going forward. So like all X-Men books, I don't have Giant Size X-Men #1, but those have also increased in price as well. A friend of mine who's trying to sell one of his Giant Size X-Men #1s 990 for like 11 grand, which is the current asking price. That's what the comps are going for nowadays, which is crazy. But I just wanted to let people know that there are extremely expensive books out there, but there are also other great opportunities. And this is a time where there's so much analytics behind things. There's so much data driven. There's so much like how much is on the census, first appearance, the keys. Like there is so much data out there that there are still opportunities. Like there are still books that I believe have a lot of room to grow. And the prices for the books are still outlandish. Star Wars Clone Wars #1, a book I hope to own one day, but I probably couldn't, I'll figure something out. But one day is still a great book that still has potential. The show has been announced, but normally when you first see the show, that's kind of like there's always a little spike. And I think the Star Wars universe is kind of building their MCU. They have the blueprints, they have the layout, they know how to make their main characters in the MCU. And I think they're trying to do that within the Star Wars universe. So could you imagine if you went back? Like, think back like 13 years ago when the MCU first started out. If you could have told yourself, like, all right, cool, let's go ahead and pick up the Hulk first appearance, and Thor first appearance, and Loki first appearance, and Black Widow, and, like, you're nuts, right? So I think they're kind of doing that as a Star Wars universe within the Disney Plus. So therefore, people are trying to get behind the Star Wars books, which have all popped. Name a character, the book is stupid. Doesn't matter what character, Salacious Crumb's first appearance, it doesn't matter anymore. They're all super expensive. But there's still potential. And that's where it comes down to doing your homework and not being intimidated by how much is out there. If anything, there is more work to be done, but I think the rewards are going to be even greater than they were previously, especially if the work is done properly. So it's one of those things where I don't think that we are in a comic bubble. I think that prices will eventually stabilize, but I don't think we'll ever see the day again. At least not, I don't know. I mean, never say never, right? Never say never. But in the current climate we are in the markets, that unless like the MCU just suddenly stops and like movies stop making and shows stop making, I don't think we'll ever see this book, a 9.6, get back under that $400 marker. Like that, I think that time period's gone. Do you ever think this book will get back down less than 1,000 as long as Spider-Man stays relevant in the MCU? And so many people are picking up X-Men characters, including Wolverine's first appearance. And Wolverine #1, his limited series, has picked up as well, because people think they might get a show. So everyone is trying to like speculate and like put their stuff in on a book before it kind of picks up. But overall, I don't think this is like a bubble. I don't think these prices are absolutely ridiculous. I just think that you just need to be a more savvy collector and or a speculator than you have been previously. Because yes, there are still great risks out there. And you don't want to be the one stuck holding the bag. Like that's, now at the end of the day, if you love the bag, then it doesn't matter. Like if all the books that just showed you were worth half as much and or 75% less of what they were tomorrow, I would still love all these books. That would not change. Like I love all these books. Like they bring me great joy. Sure, the price is awesome, but that's one thing you have to remember, is that like if your collection becomes worthless in 2 weeks, do you still love your collection? And at the end of the day, I feel that's one of the most important things to forget, because at the end of the day, this is still a hobby that's meant to be enjoyed and try to have fun with. Yes, you always want to get the hottest book. Yes, you're always waiting for the next Canto or Somebody's Killing Children, or you want the next Star Wars book, or the next hot book, or the next Joker #2, #1 in 50 secret cover book. Had no idea about that one. But you're not going to always get everything. And that's okay. The best thing I can tell you is that come up with a plan, figure out the books you want to get, and work your butt off to get them. That's what my goal is to do this year, and there are some big boy books that I'm going to be chasing. And I pray the market doesn't get any crazier than it is in the next year or so. But it might, and if it does, it'll be okay, because I'm along for the ride. This has been so much fun learning everything about this comic market that I have in just the past year of doing YouTube. I have met so many great people on here that I like, too many names to count, and it's opened my eyes up to so much more great content out there. where I am such a noob on such the low scale compared to all the other great collectors that have been doing it for 5, 10, 15, 20. People who bought this off the news, they bought this off the rack, and I'm just like, I've been at this 3 years, give or take, seriously, like 2.5. It has been such an amazing experience to learn all this, and it's one of those things where you're like, all right, prices are insane, let's do this. Let's see what we can pick up this year, and not to fret or be intimidated or to worry, but there is always a risk, and do your work, and never be afraid to take a chance either. That's one thing that I have kind of learned, is that opportunity cost, right? Well, I apologize just kind of making this rambling video, but it was something that's been on my mind for a couple weeks now, with all the prices getting to where they are and what people believe is like maybe a bubble or a market or a crash coming. And if there is a crash coming, I am also okay with it. That just means more buying opportunities of books that I've really wanted to pick up. So like, if there's a crash, let's do this so I can buy some more big books. Because I have no problem then maybe paying some half off prices for a couple books I have been after. But at the end of the day, guys, like, do your homework, do your research. Don't be intimidated by these current market prices. Yes, they are higher than they ever have been. But at the end of the day, there's always more highs than there are lows. So keep that in mind when you're out there hunting. And best luck to you. I hope you enjoyed this. This is just something that I just wanted to ramble on about and just kind of give my 2 cents and throw my hat in the ring on about. And hopefully you didn't hate this rambling too much. Something fun I wanted to put out there. But I hope you found it insightful to what I think is happening in the market. And I'm a buyer. Like, I am going to conventions this year. When they come up, I'm still looking for books to purchase, because I still think there's great opportunities out there to still purchase books that have more potential to grow. So I want to tell you, like, I am still a buyer. I'm still looking for books, and that's not going to stop regardless of these prices. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Just something that I want to throw out there. It's kind of a more insightful video on how I think about this current market. But you guys know what to do, man. Hulk, smash that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't before. I'd greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to doing maybe some more insightful videos in the future, and or a live sale, and or what do I do in a top 50 video? But I realized, like, I don't have top 50 I have a lot of repeats. So I saw Alex Comic Hoarder and Vince McLean and then like Comic Book Geek do like a top 50 video, which they're all amazing, and I want to do. And then I'm like half my books or something is killing the children or Venom books. So I'm just like, it'd been really boring. But if you want me to do a top 50 video, I might do it. It might get a little repetitive, but I definitely have 50 books, but there's a lot of repeats. So let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on the current comic market. I'd love to have a discussion about that, and or if I'm going to do the top 50 video. But that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this ramble. I am out of breath, which is embarrassing to say. But Skeff, out.